Top of Carrie's list this week is getting her flapdragon waxed by hair-based torturer to the stars, Alicia, whose vibe is very... To Carrie's horror, Alicia decides her lady garden needs more than a simple pruning, and evidently not in the mood for consent, violently strips it of its winter coat. She later whinges about not having enough money to buy curtains for her apartment, despite eating out for every meal and going out of her way to get the most expensive wax in the city. Clearly written by people who think the bread line is something that forms before a bakery opens. As you'd expect, her desire for a fuzz-free bikini line is purely in service of sitting around the hotel pool doing f*** all without attracting the attention of any nearby hunters. There are, however, some West Coast events of interest to our plucky heroine. After clearing the low bar of impressing Carrie by having access to the VIP room, Keith demonstrates a savvy cynicism by taking her to view a $3.2 million house he's interested in. Naturally, after that, Carrie's all in, and before you can say gold digger, she's whipping off her bikini in the hot tub. Which is a great way to get a friction burn with a bacterial infection chaser, FYI. Also, and I don't know how I feel about this, Keith makes a point of complimenting Carrie's hairless ham sandwich.
I really like what you have going on down there.
That would be a whole lot of nothing.
Is that a red flag? Do we need to check if Keith is on a register of some kind? Let me know. The next morning, Carrie's startled awake by none other than Carrie Fisher, who reveals that Keith is actually her PA.
The f*** do you think you're doing?
The real and best Carrie in the room also becomes the third person to mistake Bradshaw for a sex worker.
I told you, no prostitutes when you're house sitting.
And I mean, she might not be demanding to see a Venmo confirmation before a guy's allowed to leave her bedroom, but this happens to her a lot. Finally sick of being a demon in the City of Angels, she returns to her apartment in New York wearing a jumpsuit and bum bag that reminds me of this lady. She self-indulgently muses that she's starting to feel like her old self again. If you listen closely, you can hear the distant sound of an early warning klaxon somewhere in the city. Miranda's preoccupation this week is ex-NYC resident and current LA-based screenwriter Lou, about whom you need to know two things. The first is that his supposedly hit TV show is a very thinly veiled swipe at Friends, which at the time of airing was at the peak of its popularity. Cue a supposedly self-aware gag from SATC about Friends being an unrealistic depiction of NYC living. Which would fly were it not for the fact that a real-life version of Carrie would be wearing whatever she could find behind Dollar Tree and living in a 6-person flat share with the square footage of a coffin. The second thing is that in his East Coast days, Lou was heavier. Miranda didn't want him then, but just look at her face light up now he's thinner. This shallow attitude even allows her to look past the new age health-conscious drivel spewing out of his mouth. Then again, she also threatens to shoot him twice in 30 seconds, so clearly even that has a limit.
Don't believe me, just watch.
I know, shoot you.
Exactly.
12 seconds later.
Take off that hat, I'm gonna shoot you right now.
That being said, Lou counters by inviting her to go for a hike. You know what? She has a point. Let's kill him. She later goes as far as to describe him as perfect, partly because he's lost the neuroses she associates with men back home, but mostly because he's lost 30 pounds. And as we know from our stick-thin leading ladies, weight is always a great predictor of personality. Driven by a growing desire to emulate his apparent zen, Miranda dresses up for dinner with Lou at a fancy restaurant. He turns up wearing this. Read the room, Miranda. What she actually interprets as a red flag is reliably problematic. Lou keeps spitting out mouthfuls of his steak, an eating disorder brought on by LA's unrealistic body standards.
What are you doing?
It's played for laughs, which is pretty gross, and is only made worse by Carrie's voiceover cheerfully adding that no real New Yorker would ever waste such high quality meat. No surprise there then that her understanding of EDs is about as comprehensive as her knowledge of literally anything else. When she eventually lands back in the city that never sleeps but apparently does eat, Carrie tells us that Miranda can't wait to get back to men who swallow. Same, girl. Same. We find ourselves in a weird in-between phase for Samantha this week, where the show is trying to develop her but hasn't quite figured it out. So while she gets more screen time, the vast majority is extremely on the nose and counterproductive. In an episode all about fakery, Samantha develops a brief obsession with knockoff designer handbags. As you'd probably come to expect, this doesn't result in a bit of much needed fleshing out for her character, but instead serves as an opportunity for Carrie to come to a realization about being authentic and keeping it real. Which will drop right out of her head the second the episode ends, of course. Since this week is about uncomfortable truths lurking in plain sight, what happens next isn't so surprising. At the after-party, Sam manages to wangle an invite to the Playboy mansion from supposed childhood hero and already rotting corpse Hugh Hefner.
Samantha had worshipped Hugh Hefner ever since she was old enough to steal her father's Playboys.
Because even at the time, that was clearly going to pan out beautifully. To give it its due, the show kind of attempts to show the whole thing up for the grim, objectifying spectacle that it is, but the real problem is how dirty they do Samantha in the process. Fair enough, Hefner was famous, but is this really the kind of man that Samantha Jones would idolise? I don't know, it just feels to me like overhearing Jennifer Coolidge gushing about her love for dog euthanasia.
Please, these
Puppies.
they're trying to murder me.
The whole thing falls apart when Sam accuses a Playboy bunny of stealing her fake Fendi, but discovers the model actually has the real deal. After witnessing the whole embarrassing thing, their undead host kicks the lot of them out, presumably with whichever foot was less at risk of snapping off. A prime opportunity wasted to, say, have her realise that there was nothing there worth admiring. Probably because they couldn't have filmed on location if old Hef knew they were running a hit piece on him. If only he'd known. That said, it does enable Miranda to deliver the line of the episode when she describes the grotto's pool to be nothing more than, quote,
Look at that. Kid soup.
I bet that's a difficult one to log on MyFitnessPal. Charlotte, meanwhile, starts out back in New York, but very quickly tires of Trey's continuing shit when it comes to their love life. I'm not sure what the acceptable protocol is in difficult interpersonal conflicts like this one, but I do know that Charlotte f***ing off to LA seemingly without saying anything probably isn't it. Regardless, she rocks up to Carrie's hotel room full of hell about Trey's unwillingness to engage with his issues and ready to unwind with a change of scenery. Unfortunately, Charlotte's idea of letting loose on holiday turns out to be ordering an egg white omelette with no cheese. Why not just skip the middleman and get the waiter to spit straight into your open mouth? At the insistence of Miranda, whose wide-eyed glee at the idea of causing pain is very on brand, Mrs. McDougal pays Alicia a visit. Just like Carrie before her, she gets an unexpected below-the-belt scalping, which Samantha later suggests might solve Trey's performance issues on site. We might need to check if he's on the same register as Keith.
FBI, open up!
After finally admitting to the others over drinks that Trey's little bishop in a turtleneck can't make it all the way to the end of its sermon, Charlotte's finally ready to let her hair down. Unfortunately, that's the night they all trek over to the Playboy mansion. She winds up lying on some poolside cushions, chatting with older art collector Ian. This charmer's opening gambit is that it's a pleasure talking to an intelligent woman for once, which Charlotte takes as a compliment. It is not. He also suggests that he's actively trying to get her drunk, then says that chatting with him isn't so bad because given where they are, it could be a lot worse. How many more red flags do you need before you're shoulder-barging European strippers out of the way to hop the fence? He does eventually take it too far when he casually offers to buy her a new pair of
huge boobs. I mean some serious hunkers. A real setup of donkers.
This allegedly reminds her of how awful single life used to be. But you tell me, ladies, how often do men you've just met offer to buy you a replacement chest? It's certainly never happened to me. Maybe I'm going to the wrong parties. So everyone, what have we learned? That things aren't always what they seem. Another profound and obvious bit of bollocks from our friends at Sex and the City. But what you can learn right now is that last video's top comment was from Rutter, who would have licked the nose of a personal space invading Matthew McConaughey. Pretty generous, I think. I would have pushed him out the window. For this week, get thee to the comments below and tell me, has a partner ever lied to you about who they were? Or have you ever told a lie to get someone's attention? Either way, thanks for watching, don't forget to like and subscribe, and as ever, if you can't be good, be crusty.